Mr. President. Yesterday was a day that really captured the attention of the world. We've all been talking about tariffs for a little bit, but yesterday was the day that really brought the focus to what was going on here in the United States. At 12:01 in the morning on Wednesday, President Trump's tariffs on the countries with which the United States has had the largest trade deficits went into effect, on top of the 10% tariff rates that had previously applied to all countries, which had been initiated on Saturday, April 5th. And then just hours later yesterday afternoon, the president announced a 90-day pause and lowered reciprocal tariffs to then 10%, and at the same time announced that he was raising tariffs on China to 125%. Now today it looks like that number is closer to 145%. So to say that this has been a dizzying week in Washington, D.C. is probably an understatement. Those of us that are following the markets, it has been, again, it's been somewhat head-spinning. And I'm not going to comment here on the floor today about the negotiating tactics of President Trump. I think he is legendary and really world-renowned for his skills at that, his skills in bringing nations to the table. We're seeing some of this play out literally as we speak. Other countries that have approached the administration to have discussions about tariffs.
What's going on, Right View Nation? Welcome back to the channel where we put America first and always speak truth to power. Today we've got a big one, folks. Senator Lisa Murkowski just gave a floor speech on Capitol Hill that got my blood boiling, but not in a bad way this time. She's actually doing something I completely agree with. I know. Shocking, right? She's out here calling on Congress to finally grow a spine and take back its constitutional authority over tariffs. And I'm here to break it all down for you, give you my take, and explain why this could be a huge moment for restoring the power of we the people in this country.
This is a unique kind of leverage, most certainly, keeping those across the table off balance, but bringing the world potentially to the brink of a ruinous trade war certainly qualifies as a very unique point of leverage. The effort to try to reshore manufacturing here in this country is important, it's admirable, and it's something that we should all be working towards. But I think there has been general agreement that the message from the administration has been decidedly mixed, which leads to further confusion among our trading partner and our allies. If nobody understands where the finish line is, it's hard to reach it. I don't want to focus my comments here this afternoon about these possible strategies and end results of these policies so much, but I want to focus more on the process of how these tariffs were imposed, because I believe it is yet another example of Congress choosing to cede its powers to the executive branch. And if the global implications of these tariffs have shown us nothing else, it's that measures that are as important as these should be considered by the 535 elected individuals that are in tune with the American people, rather than vesting that with just one individual acting unilaterally. It's under Article 1, Section 8 of our United States Constitution that clearly enumerates that Congress shall have the power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises. In other words, the power to levy tariffs rests with us here in the Congress. So why have we seen the executive take control over tariff rates? And the answer lies in almost a centuries-long series of bills that we have seen here that Congress has voluntarily enacted and laid down its authority for the executive to pick up. Following the disastrous Smoot-Hawley Act of 1930, which plunged our nation deeper into a Great Depression, Congress passed the following legislation. First, it was the Reciprocal Trade Agreements Act of 1934, which authorized the president to make limited tariff rates without congressional review on top of negotiating bilateral reciprocal trade agreements. Then it was the Trade Expansion Act of 1962, which broadened the president's trade powers to include multilateral trade agreements, while also allowing the president to unilaterally impose tariffs if imports could threaten national security. Then the Trade Act of 1974, which allowed the president to protect U.S. workers by adjusting tariffs if foreign countries engaged in unfair trade practices. And then just a few years later, it was the International Emergency Economic Powers Act of 1977, which gives the president authorities to address declared emergencies if, quote, unusual and extraordinary, close quote, threats exist to national security, foreign policy, or to the economy. So those powers include, you probably guessed it, the authority to regulate or prohibit imports. So in his April 2nd executive order, President Trump declared a national emergency because of a lack of reciprocity in our bilateral trade relationships and our trading partners' economic policies that suppress domestic wages. He is authorized to do so under the National Emergencies Act of 1976. So I want to be clear about all of this. I know some people might not like it, but all of what he has done is clearly above board. The president is clearly within his powers to impose tariffs on our allies, like Mexico and Canada and the EU, just as much as he is with our adversaries, like China and Russia and Iran. And President Trump and President Biden before him took this route because Congress has largely relegated tariff authority to the president through the laws that effectively cede to the executive. And my friends, it's just one more example of Congress abdicating instead of legislating. In my time here, I've seen a troubling pattern in both bodies where the party that controls the White House seems all too comfortable relinquishing authority to the president and then rubber stamping whatever policies the executive wants enshrined into law. Both Democrats and Republicans in Congress have deferred to the executive to call the shots, in my view, for far too long. Now, we use the phrase around here a lot, co-equal branches of government. I use it all the time. But the reality is, Congress was created in Article 1. Article 1 of the Constitution. We're given far more authority than the executive. All you need to do is look in your handy-dandy little pocket Constitution. Ours is a lot longer. But look at the authorities that we have. Congress may impeach and remove a president and members of the judiciary. Congress can override a presidential veto of legislation. Congress appropriates the money that funds the operation of all branches of government. And it is Congress that, again, needs to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises. So we also say a lot around here that business loves certainty. I would suggest that the country's entire tariff regime being subject to the whims of one individual lends anything but certainty. And that's why I have signed on to Senators Grassley and Senator Cantwell's legislation. They call it the Trade Review Act of 2025. And it would reclaim this branch's authority and duty to help manage tariffs as outlined in the U.S. Constitution. The bill requires notice to the Congress of the imposition of or increase in any tariffs, requires notice to the Congress in 48 hours. And with that congressional notification, it has to include an explanation of the president's reasoning for imposing or raising the tariffs, as well as providing an analysis of potential impact on American businesses and consumers. And I can tell you, the Alaskans that I'm talking to back home would really like the last part of this, an analysis of how is this going to impact us. And then another provision within the Grassley-Cantwell Act is within 60 days, Congress would pass a joint resolution of approval on the new tariff. Otherwise, all new tariffs on imports would expire after that deadline. So what this act effectively would do would be to reaffirm Congress's role with regards to tariff. It allows for a greater engagement, if you will, between the executive and the congressional branch, allows for the debate, allows for that engagement, allows for that understanding. So again, I'm hearing from folks all over back home because they're worried. We already pay high costs for just about everything in Alaska, but they're worried about what it's going to mean for groceries, for cars, for furniture, electronics, coffee. We had a visit with a group of high school students on the steps yesterday, and they were from all over the state. We had some from Ketchikan all the way out to King Cove and out in the YK Delta. And the first question from one of the 16-year-olds in that group was, can you tell me what's going on with tariffs? How is this going to impact us? And you know, I really appreciated that question from that 16-year-old who's paying attention to what's going on. He's got questions. He's here in Washington, D.C., and he's figuring he's going to get some answers from his senator. Alaskans are facing consequences. They kind of want to know that they have a voice in it, and their voice is us. It's their senator. It's their representative. That's our role here. Now, it's been suggested, and the president himself has issued a statement about this legislation. He's indicated that he does not support it and that he would veto it. That is absolutely within his power. But we also have powers. We also have powers here in Congress, and we need to assert them. And so I would hope that this bill is maybe just the start, maybe just the toe in the water here, where we're starting to see Congress reassert its authority. Because if we don't stand up for the institution, if we don't stand up for the legislative branch of our government by debating this issue and others, but holding votes, debating, let's debate this, let's have a vote on the Trade Review Act. Because if we just sit back, if we don't assert our authority, we've only got ourselves to blame when we don't like the direction that may be taken. The executive has slowly arrogated more and more power since the end of World War II, and it's dramatically accelerated post 9/11. But we here in Congress have stood by and we've accepted it. We've said it's okay. I think it's time for Congress to reassert itself, whether it's on tariffs, whether it's on the power of appropriation, whether it's overseeing the bodies, the agencies that we as a body have authorized. So let's legislate. Let's remember our role is to legislate. We owe that to those that we represent as well as to this institution for the long-term good of the nation. And with that, Mr. President, I yield the floor.
So buckle up, patriots, because we've got some Constitution talk coming your way. And you know how much I love that little pocket-sized document of freedom. First off, let's talk about what's got everyone fired up. President Trump, love him or hate him, just made another bold move on the global trade stage. He slapped new tariffs on China, raising them up to 145%. And let me tell you something, that is one hell of a move. The man understands leverage. He's not afraid to bring the heat and make these foreign countries respect America again. But let's be honest here, this kind of economic warfare, it's a double-edged sword. You start messing with tariff rates left and right, and suddenly the American farmer, the small business owner, the average consumer, we're all caught in the crossfire. And Murkowski nailed it when she said this kind of flip-flopping back and forth makes it impossible for businesses to plan, invest, or grow. And let me add this. It's not good for American strength long term when our economy is being dictated by executive whim. Now here's where it gets real good. Murkowski dropped a little truth bomb that I've been preaching for years here at Right View Nation. The Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, gives Congress, not the President, the power to levy tariffs. That's right, folks. Congress is supposed to control trade policy, not the White House, not the bureaucrats, not unelected globalists. The men and women elected by you and me, our voice, our representation, are the ones who are supposed to be in charge. But guess what? Congress has been asleep at the wheel for decades. They've handed over their power to the executive branch one piece at a time. First it was FDR, then LBJ, then Bush, Obama, and yes, even Trump. Congress just rolled over and said, "You handle it." And now we wonder why DC is so broken. This is why we have runaway government, because our legislators won't legislate. They're too busy fundraising and virtue signaling on Twitter to do their actual job, which is to write laws and check executive power. Now Murkowski's backing a bill called the Trade Review Act of 2025, and I gotta say, it's a step in the right direction. Here's what it does. If the president wants to impose or raise tariffs, he has to notify Congress within 48 hours. He has to give a clear explanation, not just some vague excuse about national security. And unless Congress votes to approve those tariffs within 60 days, they expire. Done. Gone. That's how it should be. That's how the Founding Fathers designed it to work. Checks and balances, baby, not kings and decrees. This isn't 1775 England. This is America. Power belongs to the people through their elected reps in Congress. Now, I know some of you are thinking, why should I care? I'm not an importer or a globalist fat cat. Well, let me tell you, this affects every single American. When tariffs go up, so do prices. On everything, groceries, gas, cars, electronics, you name it. You think Bidenflation is bad now? Imagine that with a 145% import tax on top. Alaskans, Murkowski's constituents, are already feeling the pain. Imagine trying to afford a gallon of milk or a cup of coffee when everything has to be shipped from thousands of miles away. And God bless the young kid Murkowski mentioned, a 16-year-old from Alaska who asked her what's going on with tariffs. You know the country's in trouble when the teenagers are more curious than half the people in Congress. Look, I'm no fan of Murkowski. She's been a squish more times than I can count. But on this, she's right. It's time for Congress to wake up, reclaim its power, do its job, stand up to the executive branch, no matter which party's in control. This is bigger than Trump, bigger than Biden. This is about the future of the republic. We've got a decision to make, patriots. Do we keep letting the presidency act like a monarchy, or do we demand that Congress start acting like the first branch of government again? I say we put the pressure on, call your reps, share this message, and most of all, never forget that we the people are the true rulers of this great land. That's it for today, Right View Nation. If you like this breakdown and you're fired up like I am, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and ring that bell so you never miss a dose of real, unfiltered American truth. And drop a comment below. What do you think about Congress taking back control over tariffs? Should they do it, or should the president keep that power? Until next time, stand strong, speak truth, and keep America first. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.